The sandwich smelled wrong. That was Queen Ashira's first coherent thought as she stalked through the industrial corridors of Crossroads Haven, following a scent that had invaded her nostrils 20 minutes ago and refused to leave. She had been reviewing fuel requisition reports for her battle fleet when the smell drifted through the ventilation system. Sweet, salty, impossibly simple. Her massive clawed feet scraped against the metal flooring as she moved, her wings folded tight against her scaled back to avoid scraping the walls. Station workers scattered at her approach, which was normal. What wasn't normal was that she barely noticed them. Greg Dalton looked up from his lunch and nearly choked on his bite of sandwich. A dragon was staring at him. Not just any dragon, but the actual dragon queen herself, all 15 feet of purple-scaled royal authority, standing in the doorway of the maintenance hangar like she'd wandered into the wrong neighborhood. Her golden eyes were fixed on the sandwich in his hands with an intensity that made him deeply uncomfortable. He swallowed carefully. The hangar was supposed to be empty during lunch hour, which was exactly why he came here. Quiet. No supervisors asking him to fix one more thing before clocking out. Just him, his sandwich, and the jalapeno of Lily he kept in his toolkit. Now there was also a dragon queen, and he had no idea what protocol demanded in this situation. "That food," Ashira said, her voice carrying the harmonic rumble typical of Dracari vocal cords. "What is it?" Greg glanced down at his lunch. Peanut butter and honey sandwich. The scent reached the administrative level. Ashira took a step closer, her head tilting in a distinctly reptilian gesture of curiosity. It traveled through 17 floors of recycled air and filtration systems. I have commanded armies across 40 star systems. I have negotiated treaties with species whose names humans cannot pronounce. And yet I walked away from a strategic planning session because I needed to know what could possibly smell like that. There was a long pause. Greg looked at his sandwich again. It was literally just peanut butter and honey on wheat bread. He'd made it that morning in his quarters, the same way he'd been making them since Lily was 3 years old. She was 8 now, back on Earth with his sister, waiting for her scheduled visit to the station next month. He made the sandwich because it reminded him to call her later, because holding it made him feel less alone on this metal rock floating between trade routes. "Do you want half?" The words came out before his brain caught up with his mouth. Ashira stared at him. Her translator must have malfunctioned because surely this human contractor, wearing stained work coveralls and sitting on an overturned crate, had not just offered to share food with the sovereign ruler of the Dracari Empire. "You would share this with me?" she asked slowly. Greg shrugged. "Made two. Was gonna save the other for dinner, but I'm not that hungry anyway." He pulled the second sandwich from his lunchbox and held it out. His hand looked absurdly small compared to her clawed palm when she reached for it. Ashira took the sandwich like it might explode. She examined it from multiple angles, sniffed it thoroughly, then took the smallest possible bite. Her eyes widened. She took another bite, larger this time. Then another. Within 30 seconds, the entire sandwich had disappeared, and she was staring at her empty hand with an expression Greg couldn't quite read. "What is this feeling?" she asked quietly. "Good, I hope." "No, yes, I do not have words." Ashira sat down on the floor, which required folding her massive frame into an undignified position that no royal observer would ever permit. "We have nutrient blocks, perfectly calibrated protein matrices, efficiency paste. Nothing tastes like this. Nothing makes me feel like this." Greg ate his own sandwich slowly, watching the Dragon Queen process whatever was happening. "My wife used to make them like this," he offered. "She'd cut off the crusts for Lily, our daughter. I don't cut the crusts because I figure she should learn to eat the whole thing, but I keep the same recipe. Same bread, same ratio of peanut butter to honey." "Your mate has passed," Ashira said. It wasn't a question. Her species could apparently smell grief the way they smelled everything else. 3 years ago, station medical emergency, wrong place when a coupling failed. Greg wrapped up the remainder of his sandwich. "Lily was 5. I took this posting because it pays better than Earth jobs. Save up enough, maybe I can go home permanent." Ashira was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice had lost its formal edge. "This food, it is not merely nutrition. No, it's lunch, but it's also, I don't know, memory, habit, something that feels normal when everything else doesn't." The Dragon Queen rose to her feet, towering over him once again. But instead of returning to formality, she looked down at the human contractor with something that might have been wonder. "I wish to understand this better. Would you permit me to return tomorrow?" Greg blinked. "You want to come back for sandwiches?" "Yes. Your Majesty, I'm a heating systems technician. I fix broken pipes. And I command fleets that could destroy planets. Yet neither of us understands why something so simple could matter so much." Ashira moved toward the door, then paused. "Tomorrow, same time." She left before Greg could agree or disagree. He sat alone in the hangar, holding half a sandwich and wondering what he'd just gotten himself into. His communicator buzzed with the afternoon shift alert. He had 47 ventilation units to inspect before end of day. He also, apparently, had a lunch appointment with a Dragon Queen tomorrow. Greg looked at the holopic of Lily, her gap-toothed smile frozen in time. "Your dad's having a weird week, kiddo," he muttered, then headed back to work. The apple slices were cut wrong. Greg could tell by the way Ashira examined each piece with intense focus, her golden eyes tracking the geometry like she was analyzing weapon schematics. He'd cut them into wedges, skin still on, with a small chunk of cheddar cheese balanced on top of each slice. It was the same snack he sent in Lily's school lunches, the same thing his wife had made for him when they first started dating. "These are not uniform," Ashira observed. She'd arrived exactly on time, causing another small panic among station workers who were definitely not accustomed to seeing royalty in the maintenance sections. "They're apples, they're round, wedges won't be identical." Greg bit into one to demonstrate. "See, still works." Ashira mimicked his action. The crunch echoed through the hangar. She chewed slowly, methodically, then reached for another piece immediately. "Why the aged milk product?" "Cheese. It's called cheese. And because it tastes good together." Greg wasn't sure how to explain food pairings to someone whose species apparently ate nothing but nutritionally optimized blocks. "Sweet and salty. The flavors balance." "Balance," Ashira repeated. She ate 3 more apple cheese combinations in quick succession. "Our rations are designed for maximum caloric efficiency and mineral absorption. The taste is standardized across all varieties. Brown Block 7 tastes identical whether consumed on the homeworld or in deep space. This is considered ideal." "Sounds depressing." The Dragon Queen's head snapped toward him. For a moment Greg thought he'd crossed a line, insulted her culture too directly. Then her mouth opened in what might have been a laugh, though it sounded more like distant thunder. "Yes, it does sound depressing when spoken aloud." She settled onto the floor again, folding her massive form into the same spot as yesterday. Over the past week, this had become their pattern. Greg would bring something simple from his personal rations or the station commissary. Ashira would arrive, they would eat together, and slowly she would ask questions that seemed to have nothing to do with food. Today she asked about temperature. Why do humans prefer certain foods hot and others cold? "Soup's better hot, ice cream's better cold, just is." "But why?" Greg had to think about that. "I guess because the temperature is part of the experience. Like, when Lily's sick I make her soup, hot soup. She holds the bowl and the warmth helps her feel better even before she eats it. The heat matters." Ashira absorbed this silently. She'd been doing that frequently, going quiet for long stretches while she processed concepts that apparently didn't exist in Dracari culture. Finally she said, "We have medical nutrition delivered intravenously when ill. It is more efficient." "But does it make you feel better?" "It repairs cellular damage at optimal speed." "That's not what I asked." The Dragon Queen looked at him with an expression he was learning to recognize. Confusion mixed with something hungrier. Not physical hunger, but a different kind of emptiness. No, it does not make me feel better. It makes me functional. Greg pulled out his thermos and poured soup into the lid cup. Vegetable beef from the commissary, nothing fancy. Try this. Ashira accepted the cup carefully, her claws clicking against the metal. She smelled it first, always did. Then she sipped, her eyes closed. This is hot. Yep. It is not optimally nutritious. The thermal energy represents wasted calories that could have been preserved in the food matrix. Sure. It is the best thing I have ever consumed. Greg smiled despite himself. It's Campbell's soup from a station vending machine. I do not know what that means. Ashira drank more, holding the cup close to her chest. Tell me about your mate. How did you know she was the one you wished to bond with? The question caught him off guard. They'd talked around his wife before, but never directly about her. She made me laugh. That sounds simple, but it mattered. She worked data analysis for the station authority, super serious job. But she'd send me messages during my shifts with terrible jokes about pipes and pressure valves, made 12-hour days bearable. And she made food for you. Yeah, not because I couldn't feed myself, but because she liked doing it. She'd experiment with recipes, try new things. Some of it was awful. Greg laughed at the memory. She once made cookies with salt instead of sugar, didn't read the container. We ate them anyway, sitting on our apartment floor, laughing until we cried. Ashira set down the empty soup cup with elaborate care. I have a son. His name is Corvin. He is 17 standard years old. I have spoken with him formally perhaps 30 times in his life. The hangar fell silent except for the distant hum of ventilation systems. Greg waited. Dracari heirs are raised by warrior trainers in the ancestral fortress. Royal parents attend naming ceremonies, coming-of-age trials, strategy demonstrations. We do not raise them. That would be inefficient. They might develop emotional dependencies that cloud judgment. Ashira's voice remained steady, but something in her posture had changed, wings pulling tighter against her back. I became queen at 24. I have spent decades in conquest and negotiation. I am very good at my duties. But you don't know your son. No. Greg packed up his empty containers, giving her time. My sister asked me once if I regretted taking this posting, being away from Lily most of the year. I told her no because the money means Lily's future is secure. But that was a lie. I regret it every single day. I just do it anyway because sometimes being a parent means doing things that hurt. Your daughter knows you love her. Yeah, because I tell her. Because I send messages and make sandwiches for her visit and cut apples the way she likes them. He met Ashira's eyes. You can't bond with someone you never talk to. The Dragon Queen rose slowly. She moved toward the door, then stopped. Tomorrow, same time, I wish to learn more of these human rituals. They're not rituals, they're just lunch. To you, perhaps. Ashira left without another word. Greg sat alone with his thoughts and his empty thermos, wondering what exactly he was teaching the most powerful military leader in 3 sectors. The first Dracari noble arrived on station 3 days later, and Greg knew his quiet lunch breaks were officially over. The dragon's name was something complicated with too many consonants. He introduced himself as High Commander Vrath, which sounded appropriately intimidating. He also looked like he wanted to bite Greg's head off, which was less than ideal. You will cease these meetings with Queen Ashira immediately, Vrath announced. He'd cornered Greg in the residential corridor, blocking the entire hallway with his bulk. Other station residents found urgent business elsewhere very quickly. I'm not the one who initiated them, Greg pointed out, trying to keep his voice steady. She keeps showing up to my lunch spot. Because you have manipulated her with your primitive food tricks. You are exploiting our queen's curiosity to gain political influence. Greg almost laughed. My influence gets me exactly nothing. I still fix broken heating units for standard contractor wages, unless peanut butter is secretly worth more than I think. Vrath's lips pulled back, showing far too many teeth. You mock our concerns. No, I'm pointing out that your concerns don't make sense. Your queen wanted to try human food. I shared my lunch. That's literally all that happened. But it wasn't all that happened, and they both knew it. Word had spread fast through whatever communication networks the Dracari used. The Dragon Queen was meeting secretly with a human, not a diplomat or military leader, a maintenance worker. The implications were being debated in royal courts across Dracari space, and none of those debates ended well for Greg. Station Administrator Walsh called him to her office that afternoon. She looked tired, which made sense because coordinating interspecies trade was already complicated without adding royal scandals. I need you to understand the political situation here, Walsh said, pulling up holographic displays showing Dracari military assets. Queen Ashira controls the third largest fleet in known space. Her empire spans 92 colonized worlds. Trade agreements with the Dracari are worth billions of credits annually. And right now, her nobles think a human contractor is manipulating their queen with sandwiches. That's ridiculous. Of course it's ridiculous, but perception matters in politics. Walsh rubbed her temples. I'm not ordering you to stop. I can't order you to stop having lunch, but I am asking you to consider the bigger picture. Greg left the meeting feeling like he'd been punched in the stomach. He thought about not going to the hangar the next day, just avoiding the whole situation until Ashira gave up and went back to conquering planets or whatever Dragon Queens did. But when lunch hour arrived, he found himself walking to the hangar anyway. Ashira was already there, waiting. They've been talking to you, she said immediately. Yeah. And you are here regardless. Greg set down his lunchbox. Figured I'd let you make the call. If you want to stop meeting, that's your choice. But I'm not going to run away because some nobles got their scales twisted. Ashira made that thunder laugh sound again. Their scales twisted. I must remember that phrase. She settled into her usual spot on the floor. High Commander Vrath believes you are using emotional manipulation to influence my political decisions. Are you being manipulated? I am eating crackers with jam and discussing human parenting philosophy. If that constitutes manipulation, then I am a willing victim. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Greg had brought assorted crackers and 3 types of jam for variety. Ashira tried each combination methodically, like she was conducting a scientific experiment. I told Vrath something today, she said eventually. I told him that in 40 years of conquest and diplomacy, no one has taught me anything as valuable as what I have learned in this hangar. And what's that? That strength without joy creates emptiness. That efficiency without meaning is just motion. That an empire built on warriors who never laugh or play or share simple meals is an empire that has forgotten why it exists. Greg nearly dropped his cracker. You said that to a high commander. I said it to all 7 nobles who came to lecture me about propriety. Ashira's eyes gleamed with something that might have been satisfaction. Then I told them they would each try human food before returning to their ships. You're kidding. I do not kid. It is not a Dracari trait, though I am beginning to think it should be. She produced a small container from somewhere in her armor plating. I brought this from my private quarters. Dracari nutrient block, standard military issue. I wish you to try it. Greg accepted the brown cube cautiously. It looked like compressed sawdust and smelled like nothing at all. He bit off a corner. It tasted like cardboard mixed with vitamins and sadness. This is what you eat. Every meal, every day, for our entire lives. He managed to swallow the piece barely. I'm so sorry. Do not be sorry, be angry. I am. Ashira took the cube back and stared at it. I am angry that we have built a civilization where this is considered acceptable, where children grow up never knowing that food can be beautiful, where parents and offspring are separated because emotional bonds are inefficient, where queens command armies but cannot remember the last time they felt genuine happiness. What are you going to do? First, I am going to watch 7 uncomfortable nobles try peanut butter and honey sandwiches. Then, I am going to return home and make one for my son. She met Greg's eyes. Is this foolish? No, it's the least foolish thing I've heard all week. The nobles arrived that evening. Greg watched from a maintenance catwalk as Ashira presented each of them with the simple foods he'd brought. Their reactions ranged from suspicious to hostile, but when they actually ate, something shifted. One elderly dragon stood completely still for 5 minutes after trying apple and cheese. Another requested a second sandwich, then a third. By the end, none of them looked quite as certain that Greg was a manipulative threat to the Empire. High Commander Vrath found Greg afterward. "This changes nothing," he said, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. "Didn't think it would," Greg replied. But he was wrong. It changed everything. Lily arrived on station talking nonstop about zero-gravity swimming pools and whether dragons were real or just really big lizards. She was 8 years old, missing 2 front teeth, and utterly fearless in the way children are before the universe teaches them otherwise. Greg had been counting down the days until her visit for 3 months, and now she was here, spinning in his desk chair while he tried to explain station safety protocols. "So if there's a hull breach alarm, I go to the nearest shelter pod. I know, Dad, you told me 5 times already." She spun faster. "Can we get ice cream from the commissary? After dinner, can we video call Aunt Marie? Tomorrow morning her time. Can I see the big hangar where you fix stuff?" Greg hesitated. "Maybe not today." "Why not?" Because the Dragon Queen of the Dracari Empire had been eating lunch there with him every day for 3 weeks, and he had no idea how to explain that situation to an 8-year-old. Because station politics were complicated and dangerous, and he wanted to keep Lily far away from all of it. Because he'd been keeping 2 parts of his life carefully separated and wasn't ready for them to collide. "Just because," he said, which was the universal parent answer when you didn't have a better one. Lily gave him the same look her mother used to give him when he was being obviously evasive. Then she shrugged and went back to spinning. "Okay, can we make sandwiches?" They made sandwiches. Lily insisted on cutting her own bread, which resulted in uneven slices and a minor injury to the cutting board. She spread peanut butter with intense concentration, then drizzled honey in what she claimed was a spiral pattern but looked more like random squiggles. They were perfect. "Mom used to cut the crusts off," Lily said around a mouthful of sandwich. "I know. You don't cut them off." "Nope." "That's okay, I like the crusts now anyway." She swung her legs from the kitchen stool. "Do you eat these at work?" "Sometimes." "By yourself?" "Usually." Lily processed this with the seriousness of a judge reviewing evidence. "That's sad. You should eat with friends." "I'm working during lunch." "Still sad." The next day, despite his best efforts, Lily wandered off while he was checking a pressure valve in Corridor 7. He found her 15 minutes later in the big hangar, standing in front of Queen Ashira and asking if dragons liked peanut butter. Greg's heart stopped. Ashira was in full royal armor, fresh from some diplomatic function. She towered over Lily like a building over a flower, and Lily was looking up at her with absolute delight, no fear at all. "I have developed an appreciation for it, yes," Ashira said carefully. "Me too, it's the best. Do you want to help me make sandwiches? Dad says I'm getting really good at it." Greg rushed over. "Lily, you can't just invite people to make sandwiches." "Why not you do it?" "That's different." "How?" He had no answer for that. Ashira was watching the exchange with obvious interest, her head tilting in that reptilian curiosity gesture he'd come to recognize. Lily grabbed his hand and pulled. "Come on, Dad. We have all the stuff back at quarters. Your Majesty can come if she wants." "Lily, this is the Queen of the Dracari Empire. She has important things to do." "Do you?" Lily asked Ashira directly. There was a very long pause. Then Ashira said, "Not presently, no. I would be honored to assist with sandwich creation." Which was how Greg found himself in his modest station quarters watching his 8-year-old daughter teach the most powerful military leader in 3 sectors how to properly spread peanut butter. Lily was very specific about technique. Not too thick or it sticks to your mouth. Not too thin or you can't taste it. Always spread to the edges because nobody likes dry corners. Ashira followed instructions with absolute focus. Her massive claws were wildly impractical for the task, but she managed. "Your father mentioned you prefer honey," she said. "It's the best, better than jam." "I have tried jam. I agree honey is superior." Lily beamed. "See, Dad, she gets it." They made 6 sandwiches total. Lily insisted everyone eat at least one immediately to verify quality. They sat on the floor of Greg's small living space, a dragon queen and a human contractor and a gap-toothed 8-year-old, eating peanut butter and honey sandwiches. "Dad says you're a queen," Lily said. "I am." "Do you have a castle?" "Several." "That's so cool. I live in an apartment with Aunt Marie when Dad's working. It's okay, but there's no castle." Ashira was quiet for a moment. "I have a son. His name is Corvin." "Does he live in a castle?" "Yes, the ancestral fortress on our homeworld." "Do you live there too?" "No, I travel frequently for my duties." Lily frowned. "So you don't see him much?" "No." "That's sad. Does he like peanut butter?" The question was so simple, so purely innocent, that Greg saw it hit Ashira like a physical blow. The Dragon Queen looked down at her half-eaten sandwich, and when she spoke her voice was quieter than he'd ever heard it. "I do not know what my son likes. I do not know his favorite foods or his interests or whether he sleeps well. I know that he excels in combat training. I know that he has won strategic simulation tournaments. I know his official scores and rankings." She paused. "But I do not know if he is happy." Lily scooted closer and patted Ashira's scaled forearm. "You should make him a sandwich. That's what my dad does when I'm sad, and it helps." Ashira didn't leave when Lily's bedtime arrived. She stayed while Greg read his daughter 3 chapters of a space adventure book Lily had already read twice. She stayed while Lily extracted promises about tomorrow's activities and argued for 15 more minutes of consciousness. She stayed quiet and still in the corner of the small quarters while Greg kissed his daughter's forehead and turned down the lights. In the living space, Greg made tea. Badly because he wasn't very good at it, but Ashira accepted the cup anyway. "I am returning to the homeworld tomorrow," she said. "Because of the nobles." "Because of my son." Ashira held the teacup in both claws, warming them. "Your daughter asked me if Corvin likes peanut butter, such a small question, and I realized I could not answer it. I cannot answer any questions about who my son is beneath his titles and training scores." Greg sat across from her. "What are you going to do?" "Something unprecedented and possibly foolish. I am going to request a private audience with Prince Corvin, not a formal ceremony, not a strategic briefing, just us, in a room with no attendants or protocols." She looked at Greg. "I am going to bring ingredients and make him a sandwich." "He might think you've lost your mind." He would be partially correct. That thunder laugh again. "But I have spent 17 years being an excellent queen and a completely absent mother. I have convinced myself this was necessary, that duty required sacrifice, that emotional distance ensured proper judgment. Your daughter showed me the truth in 5 minutes of conversation." "Lily has a gift for that." "She does. And you have a gift for being present even when circumstances make it difficult. You work this posting to provide for her future, yet you maintain connection through small rituals. Sandwiches, video calls, visits like this one. You feel guilt about the time apart, yet you do not use duty as an excuse to avoid loving her. Greg wrapped his hands around his own teacup. I'm not always good at it. Some days I'm too tired to be a good dad. Some days I just go through the motions. But you are there. Motion or not, you show up. Ashira set down her cup. I need to tell you something. When I first came to this hangar, I told myself it was curiosity about human food. That was not entirely true. No. I followed the scent of your sandwich because it smelled like something I have been missing my entire life without knowing what I was missing. Not the food itself, the love that made you prepare it, the care in assembling something simple and good for someone you cherish, the memory of your wife in every familiar motion, the anticipation of your daughter's visit. She gestured around the modest quarters. This is what I smelled. This is what drew me, not peanut butter. Love. The words settled between them like physical objects. Greg cleared his throat. That's a lot to get from a sandwich. Dracary senses are very acute. We can detect chemical signatures humans cannot perceive. Oxytocin, dopamine, the biological markers of affection and contentment. Your food carries those markers because it is made with care. Our nutrient blocks carry nothing. They are efficient calorie delivery, nothing more. Your whole species eats like that. My whole species has structured itself around perfect efficiency. We are the greatest military power in known space. We have optimized everything, and in that optimization we lost something essential. Ashira stood, her head nearly touching the ceiling of the small quarters. I am going to try to reclaim it, for myself and for my son. Perhaps I will fail. Perhaps the nobles will call it weakness and move against my rule. But I would rather be overthrown attempting to love my child than remain queen in permanent isolation. She moved toward the door, then paused. Thank you, Greg Dalton, for sharing your lunch, for tolerating my questions, for allowing me to see what a family looks like even in imperfect circumstances. You're welcome, and Ashira, your son won't care if the sandwich is perfect. He'll care that you made it. After she left, Greg cleaned up the teacups and checked on Lily one more time. His daughter was sound asleep, one arm wrapped around her favorite stuffed animal. He adjusted her blanket and stood there watching her breathe, thinking about all the ways love showed up in small actions. The next day he got a message from Administrator Walsh. Ashira had departed on a private shuttle to the Dracary homeworld. The nobles had gone with her, confused and concerned. Station politics could return to normal. His lunch breaks would go back to being solitary and quiet. Lily was disappointed she didn't get to say goodbye to the Dragon Queen. Greg promised her they'd send a message later, though he had no idea if Ashira would respond. They spent the rest of her visit doing normal things, swimming in the zero-gravity pool, video calls with Aunt Marie, ice cream from the commissary, making sandwiches together in his small kitchen. On her last day, Lily asked him if the Dragon Queen seemed sad. A little, Greg admitted. I hope she makes that sandwich for her son. I bet he'll like it. Yeah, I bet he will too. 3 months passed. Greg fell back into his normal routine of pressure checks and ventilation repairs and sandwiches eaten alone in the hangar. Lily sent him drawings from school and asked about the Dragon Lady in every video call. He told her he didn't know what Ashira was doing, which was true. Then the package arrived. It was small by interstellar shipping standards, wrapped in material that shimmered with Dracary royal seals. Station security scanned it 17 times before clearing it for delivery. Inside was a medallion made from some purple metal Greg didn't recognize, engraved with symbols he couldn't read. There was also a handwritten note on actual paper, which seemed wildly impractical and therefore significant. The note read, Contractor Dalton, I returned to the ancestral fortress and requested private audience with my son. The warrior trainers were scandalized. Prince Corvin was suspicious. I brought ingredients. I made him a sandwich. I made it badly. The proportions were incorrect and I broke the bread. He stared at it for 5 minutes. Then he asked why. I told him about peanut butter and simple rituals and a human who taught me that the strongest act is choosing tenderness. We ate together. He cried, I cried. We talked for 4 hours about nothing important and everything that matters. The nobles called it weakness. Common soldiers heard the story and began eating meals with their own offspring. A tradition is spreading through our culture, quiet but persistent. Parents requesting time with children, families sharing food, dragons learning to laugh. I am told there is resistance from traditionalists, but I no longer care. I have met my son. He likes honey better than jam. He wishes to study xenobiology instead of military tactics. He told me he used to watch my ship launches from the fortress walls and wonder if I loved him. I told him I always loved him but forgot how to show it. This is the medallion of the royal household. It grants bearer access to all Dracari territory and priority diplomatic status. I give it to you not as payment but as gratitude. You asked for nothing. You shared your lunch. You changed everything. Also enclosed is a drawing from Prince Corvan. He wishes your daughter to know that dragons think sandwiches are the best too. Greg had to sit down. He pulled the second item from the package. A piece of heavy paper, obviously expensive, covered in careful crayon drawings. A purple dragon and a smaller human figure sitting together with plates between them. Above them, in careful letters, "Thank you for teaching my mother about sandwiches." He called Lily that night, outside her normal schedule. She answered sleepily, Aunt Marie hovering in the background looking concerned. "Is everything okay, Dad?" "Yeah, better than okay." He held up the drawing to the video screen. "The Dragon Queen's son sent you something." Lily's eyes went wide. She was suddenly completely awake. "Really? What does it say?" Greg read the message. Lily listened with absolute focus, the same expression she got during her favorite stories. When he finished, she smiled her gap-toothed smile. "See, I told you sandwiches help when you're sad." "You were right. I'm gonna draw him a picture back. Can you send it to the Dragon Castle?" "I think we can arrange that." After the call ended, Greg sat alone in his quarters holding the medallion and the drawing. Somewhere across the galaxy, a dragon queen was learning to be a mother. Soldiers were sharing meals with their children. An empire built on efficiency was discovering that some things mattered more than optimization. All because he'd offered half a sandwich. He made himself dinner. Nothing fancy, just simple food eaten slowly. Tomorrow he'd return to work, fixing pipes and pressure valves on an industrial station floating between trade routes. Next month Lily would visit again and they'd make sandwiches together in his small kitchen. Eventually he'd save enough to go home permanently, to be with his daughter full-time instead of through video screens and scheduled visits. But tonight, he sat quietly thinking about love and how it showed up in unexpected places. About small actions that rippled outward in ways no one could predict. About the strange and wonderful fact that sometimes the most important thing you could do was share your lunch with someone who needed it. Greg put the medallion in his desk drawer, next to the jalopy of his wife and the drawings Lily sent from school. He hung Prince Corvan's artwork on his refrigerator, right where his daughter's pictures usually went. Then he made himself a peanut butter and honey sandwich, same as always, and ate it with gratitude for everything it represented. Somewhere in the Dracari ancestral fortress, a mother and son were probably doing the same thing. The thought made him smile. The universe was vast and strange and often cruel, but sometimes, in small moments between small people doing small kindnesses, it was also beautiful. He finished his sandwich and went to bed, already thinking about what to pack for Lily's lunch during her next visit. Maybe apple slices and cheese. Maybe crackers and jam. Whatever it was, he'd make it with care, the same way he always did. Because that's what love looked like. Not grand gestures or dramatic declarations, just showing up, being present, sharing what you had with someone who mattered. One sandwich at a time.